sometimes when people think legacy, they think of big, grandiose visions like Bill Gates and, like foundations, and that legacy is really what you make.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Financial Literacy Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pacito, and today's guest, I'm really happy to be introducing you. He's a really good friend of mine named Daren Givoque. He's just out in Kemptville, and I've known him, Daren, for many years now, and he's got a real commitment to community, a real commitment to building up the people around him, and he's got a wealth of financial knowledge, experience in actually many different aspects, one of which being you're restoring old vintage bikes as well. But typically for this podcast, we're going to talk about the financials. So Daren, I'm really happy to have you. And why don't you tell the viewers a bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Mike. That's very endearing. I appreciate your intro there. You make me blush. I'll tell you, a little bit about myself. Well, listen, I'm an advisor, a financial advisor in Kemptville. That's my day job. My after work job is I work quite a bit in the community. I try to volunteer as much as I can, as time commits allows me to, volunteering with charities and promoting different organizations that are nonprofits. Just trying to help out, right? And float the boats around me. I think it's so important, no matter what your stature is in the community, that, everybody can help in their own way. And I believe it's important for everyone to do that. So I have a family of my wife and my two sons that live here in Kemptville with me. We're about 5 minutes from my office. So I rarely ever hit traffic. And if I do, I can't complain that I'm late because of it. So, there's definitely some benefits of working where you live. And that's a little bit about me and the organization I work with is O'Farrell Financial.
That's awesome. How long has O'Farrell Financial been around for?
Well, we're going on 26 years now. Actually, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. And the organization actually started out, this is a total, retro kind of story because, Dermot O'Farrell started the business out of his basement in his house in Hallville, and grew the organization to 5 locations. We're up to about 40 teammates and 12 advisors and 7 partners.
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, a testament to the kind of community growth that you guys have been through. So, one of the big reasons I wanted to get you on the podcast here is you talk a lot about planning, financial planning, and one of the big kind of questions. Now, we're going to go deep in a bit, but why don't you just kind of walk us through a bit about what exactly is a financial plan to you? Like, what does that mean when we talk about a financial plan?
Well, realistically, when you're talking about a financial plan, it has all the aspects of a journey, of a roadmap, really, of where you're trying to get to right now. And back in the day when I first started out in planning, I used the analogy of a GPS or Google Maps to help you navigate where you're trying to get to. So if you plug in your destination, then, everyone who knows Google understands that it will plot a way for you to get there. And then obviously if there's road bumps along the way or detours, the nice thing about Google Maps is it recalibrates your journey and takes you on some side streets to get you back on, right? But the nice thing is it always keeps you on the track. I really like that analogy because it infers that your journey isn't static. It's not a line where you're drawing a point A to a point B and then just drawing a straight line to it. Your life is going to take you through different ups and downs, peaks and valleys. Sometimes you're going to end up in the ditch and you're going to have to call for help. And, I think sometimes people who have experienced life, experienced enough of life and been in the ditch a few times understands that there's never a straight line between A and B. It's a journey that gets you there. So I think financial planning, that's a great analogy for financial planning, because when you're picking that endpoint or that future endpoint, you're going to create what you think are the systems and processes that are going to help you get there. So you're going to make choices on, debt, cash flow. You're going to make choices on investments, and trying to pick the best products that will help you get to where it is you're trying to arrive. But life doesn't care about those things. Life just throws you curveballs, right? And I think the most powerful part of a financial plan is really its ability to adapt with the conditions that you're going through at the point in time when you're reviewing it and revising it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I really do like that analogy because I think there's a lot of different parallels that kind of just jump out at me too, because, they always say, it's the journey sometimes that makes a route that you take, not just the net destination. Does the analogy kind of hold up there? Because some people might say, hey, I just want to go from where I'm at $0 to like $10 million, but does a financial plan, is it just about getting straight from A to B, or is there more to that?
Well, again, and I think what you and I were just talking about was there's a difference between a financial plan and something like an investment summary or an investment statement, right? And and many times in the public, you listen to messages and radio announcements and where they talk about, different products per se, like an investment and an RSP, or retirement savings plan. And people misunderstand that to be a plan. And it really isn't, right? When you look at your bank account or your savings account, your checking account, those are just accounts, and they're a product that helps you achieve something that you're trying to achieve, right? A goal. And sometimes, I'll say to people when they come and work with me, I'll say, okay, bring in your financial plan and any other documents you have, like your tax documents, your tax returns, maybe your wills, your powers of attorney, these other type of miscellaneous financial documents and legal documents. And I'll say, bring those in and we'll have a look at it together and we'll lay it all out and see how everything interconnects. And quite often people will hand me their investment statement saying, here's my financial plan. And I'm like, well, that's great. This is an investment statement. So it tells you how much you've made, how much you invested, but it's not a plan, because all it is it's showing me that you've managed to, squirrel away money, you've managed to build it, and you managed to use products like stocks, bonds, and investments to grow it, right? Whereas, when I try to educate and coach people about what a real plan is it's about vision. It's about having a vision of where you see yourself transferring yourself to in the future. And then how are you going to reverse engineer that vision back to where you are today so that you can get there? Right. And a financial plan really has multiple components to it. One, it has the investments in it. Absolutely. But it also has things like risk mitigation. Because if we were living in a perfect world, I could say, Mike, you know what? You never need insurance because nothing's ever going to go wrong. You're just going to have a perfect life and it's going to be awesome. Right.
Sign me up.
Right. But the challenge really is that life is full of challenges and risks, right? I mean, getting into your shower is a risk. Getting into your car is a risk. Getting on your roof, like my wife loves to tell me not to put up the Christmas lights every year. That is a risk because I could fall off the ladder. But, I have a motorcycle. That is a risk in itself. But like life, no matter, and if COVID ever even taught us something about risk, is that, you cannot live your life in a bubble. You have to get out. You have to experience life. There's a reason why we are social creatures, is because we live outside of a bubble. We live outside and we work together. And now not that you can't do that through technology, but at the end of the day, we're all social beings. We want to be around in each other's company. So risk is really managing the risk I always like to say, it's kind of like the foundation of your financial plan, because if you don't have a good solid foundation, you're literally building your house on top of the sand, waiting for the next big wave to hit your house and knock it over. So risk mitigation is a huge piece. Tax mitigation is a big piece because, for the average Canadian, taxes are 40% of what we earn. From every dollar we bring in, it's 40% of it goes out to some level of taxation. Mm-hmm. And then obviously there's investments and then other components to it. And those are just the main components of the plan. And then on very top of the plan is really, what is your vision? What is your values? What's important to you? Because these are just dollars and cents. I love having that conversation with clients because I always say, great, you made that $1 million you were just talking about, Mike, but what do you want to do with it? Like what's your vision of what you want to do with that money? Because it translates to experiences. It translates to memories. It translates to, something that creates legacy for you, your family, and what you're doing. And if you're not having those conversations about what it is you're going to do when you hit those $1 million or those numbers that you believe that you need, then really it's two-dimensional. You're really creating a plan to just arrive at a certain number, and with no reason of what you're going to do with it when you hit it.
And one of the pushbacks, I mean, I totally am all on board on that. One of the pushbacks you sometimes might hear though is like, hey, Daren, I'm just starting out, maybe this is the first time I've even started investing. I've just gotten my first house, finally got a little bit of playing money. Like is thinking of, like, why would thinking about the legacy of your financial plan be so important right now though?
That's a great question, Mike. You don't have to have millions of dollars in the bank to have legacy, because again, if I was to fall back on the whole insurance part, right? When you look at insurance, what you're doing is you're protecting your income for your family for the next 20 years, 30 years of your life. You're saying, look, if anything happens to me along the way, I want to make sure that my family is taken care of as if I had lived a nice, healthy, long life, right? And then there's also other parts of that too. Like when you look at living legacy, which is when you have some insurance products like critical illness or disability insurance, what that's saying is that you haven't passed away. You just maybe can't go to work. What those products do is they help protect your cash flow, right? And why it's so important to tie into legacy is because, if you didn't care about your legacy, you wouldn't have insurance, because you wouldn't think about protecting your family. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think about what is the future of my children, making it to university, getting them through life with the least amount of stress and impact. You wouldn't care about your legacy, so you wouldn't have insurance. You see, these are things that the financial plan all ties into, because sometimes when people think legacy, they think of big, grandiose visions like Bill Gates and, like foundations and that. Legacy is really what you make it. It's your own, I like to call it your own soup, right? You're making your own soup and you're putting the ingredients in that are the most enjoyable for you, the things that you like to taste and be a part of, like, to enjoy. And that's what legacy is. Legacy doesn't have to be dollar signs or large visions. It can be just your family. What is your vision and legacy for your family? Where do you want it to go? So your plan all interconnects with that.
I really do like that. I mean, it sounds to me like what's really kind of cool about that is that you just threw out so many different ways you could go, like all the different products and things. But when it comes to actually making a decision, it's like having something outside of just making gut plays all the time. You can say, hey, this is valuable to me and this has to be part of the plan. Therefore, we're going to choose this. Is that kind of like what it is? It gives you something to actually build the plan around. So you're not just changing it up, like kind of from month to month, year to year. Absolutely.
Again, the plan, I always say the financial plans or plans in general are unique to the people who are creating them. Right? Mm-hmm. I can't tell someone else what their values are. They have to express that themselves. And I can't build a financial plan without like comprehensive, holistic conversations happening around the plan, right? Because what's important to me might not be important to someone else. So as a planner, one of the most valuable things you can do is listen to the other person and what it is they're trying to accomplish, and not have a predisposition as to what it is you think they're trying to accomplish. So listening is probably one of the most valuable assets I have in my practice, is listening. And part of what you were just saying, Mike, as far as building that legacy and understanding what is important to every person is then using the products, like you just said, to find the most unique product. Because what many people don't understand is, if you look at any type of insurance company or any investment company, there's thousands and thousands of products out there. And sometimes people get tripped up with trying to understand them all and which one's the most unique for them. So I think that's where some of the challenges come from when people start to do the do-it-yourself model. Is they go out and, you know, they do a little bit of Google research, and now they know everything about what they need to know. So they'll select different products without understanding maybe some of the fine print, understanding some of the challenges that might like be presented to them in the future if they pick A over B, right? And I think that's my role as an advisor and a planner is to dissect from the conversation the most appropriate, the most valuable product that all the clients can need in their lives.
Yeah. Yep. And it's something else I hear you talk about a lot too, right? It's the, you know, always saying it's like, hey, people look up to people. They look up to like the Bezoses of the world, the Elon Musks, or even just people in their community that are out there and just killing it, right? And they go, it's like, well, what's their big secret? You know, like how did they do it kind of side? And it's a little bit of like, what's kind of that critical ingredient that kind of keeps you from just saying, hey, I want to do like this investing now and going off in all kinds of different directions. You know, what is the thing that really kind of ties that all together?
Are you speaking for me, or are you speaking for people like that are planning their own lives, like working on their own plans?
Oh, I think just in general, I think you've talked a lot about focus and about how important it is you know, the benefits of having that vision in the long term, right? And being able to focus kind of on that. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
How do you keep someone focused and kind of eye on their, once they make the plan, they actually stick to it?
That's a great question, Mike. And you're right. Focus. I always consider focus to be like a currency. I look at it literally like dollars and cents, right? Because focus is where you typically spend your energy, right? You get up in the morning and, you know, you have enough focus to reach over and pick up your phone and turn off the ringer and then get your day going and start organizing your thoughts, right? And whether you're in the shower or having your coffee, that's all, in my mind, it's planning through your day, right? So through your day, you know, as you're looking at what it is you need to accomplish, focus is one of those things where if you spend it foolishly on things, you'll find yourself going in 10 different directions because your mind is designed to try to take you like to accomplish things. The problem is if you only have so much focus in a day, in a week, and you spend a lot of that focus on too many things, then I always refer to it like cooking pies. You know, if you've got 10 different pies that you're going to cook, hey, that's a good analogy for you, I think. Right?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
If you're cooking pies, you know, you might, as a baker, be able to do 3 to 5 exceptionally well. But when you start going to 7, 8, 9, and 10, here's the problem. You might only actually cook 3 now very well, and the other 7 are either going to be undercooked or overcooked, or just not work out well because you're taking your focus off of, say, 3 to 5 and putting it on 10. And that is just not sustainable. It burns you out. It creates frustrations in your life. And then you feel like you're demoralized because you're not accomplishing things. So I think the first thing with people is they have to create a list for themselves of priorities. Right. And I literally break it down into different components. I break down my personal life. I break down my business life. And then I also break down my charitable life. Right. Because my personal life is my personal life with my family and friends. My charity life is what I feel I need to give back to feel fulfilled about how my life is. And then my business life is obviously how I earn a living and how I, you know, grow and financially support myself. So I break those into 3 different categories. And then from each category, I identify what the most important things are from a timeline perspective, whether it's 12 years, 3 years, 5 years, right down to the week. And then I try to organize my thoughts and itemize things very carefully. And then I prioritize, right? So for each one of those buckets, I make sure that I'm prioritizing the things that I've identified as to when they have to happen, how I can stay focused on each one. And then I create a game plan for each one to make sure that I keep myself accountable to each one of those things.
Goal setting, I mean, you hear it everywhere, right? Goal setting it's pretty much everything. Goal setting and we're talking about financial planning. What do you say though to somebody who might get a little intimidated for that. Maybe they've never, because they either live paycheck to paycheck most of their life, or just they've never really had a big goal like that. And they start hearing, oh man, I got to have like a 20-year goal. Like, how do you kind of like what happens when those fears of saying, well, what happens if, maybe I won't even hit that goal. So what's the point in making it?
Right.
What do you say to that?
Mike, I think everything starts in baby steps. I know it sounds very, very simplified, but everything comes with discipline. Everything comes with discipline, right? Because again, discipline is probably a very good friend of focus, right? And if you have discipline, good, positive disciplines, then they're going to help carry you through each one of those goals that you're setting for yourself. And I always tell people, you don't want to take on big, hairy goals, huge goals right away, because it overwhelms. And when it overwhelms, the first thing you do is you put it aside. You say, this is too much for me to think about right now. I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to put this on the sidelines. And the moment you put it on the sidelines, there's a very high probability you're never going to come back to it. And if you do, you're going to feel demoralized because you didn't get to it. So here's what I always say. I always say, start small and build up towards the bigger goals, because that's the only way you're going to eat the elephant is in small chunks. Everybody's heard that term. You got to eat the elephant in small bites. So you start off very small. You build yourself up with dollars and cents rather than thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. You start in dollars. And the truth is, if you look at any good financial plan, it is really built on compounding. People start out with small amounts. They start compounding, and growth starts to build what their plan is. No one ever gets to the destination, within 2 seconds. They get there through a journey. And so, like when you're talking about, those goals, you start off with smaller goals, things that are easy to accomplish in smaller steps, so that you build up your confidence in why you're doing it. And so it might be saving $25 a week. It might be, let's do a small insurance policy. I can't afford the big one right now, but having something is always better than having nothing. Right. Yeah. And discipline comes in both positives or negatives. So some people have a negative discipline that is, maybe they smoke cigarettes. Right. Well, that costs you financially, and it also costs you health. So I'm not judging what people do or like with their time and money. But I'm just saying, if you frame it and you say to yourself, well, you know what, if I quit smoking, my health will be improved, my insurance will cost less, and I'll have more money to put aside for investing or saving. So
what is the savings, by the way? Like what's the rough savings of quitting smoking? Is that something you have?
Smoking or even vaping, I would probably, it depends on how like what the person's habit is. But I would probably say, anywhere between $500 and a couple $1,000s a year easily is what most people spend on that. Right. So, yeah, these are just, that's just one example. But there's other things you could look at. There's alcohol. There's other vices that maybe people spend on that I'm not saying that they're negative, they're some of them are negative, and I'm not judging, but I'm just saying, like if you make choices in your life and you try to focus on the positive ones, that's how you're going to feel like you're accomplishing things faster. Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. Daren, I know your time is really valuable here. So I'm really also excited. I heard that you're promoting a book, or where are you at in the book writing? Are you getting close to launch, or?
Absolutely. We are. I work quite extensively with a small networking group of divorce professionals, lawyers, mediators, accountants, real estate agents. And it's interesting because a couple of years ago when I was working with this group of people, I used to say to myself all the time, oh man, this is such great information that I'm learning from these people that is going to be great if I ever have to impart it on someone else that's going through a divorce or going through a separation that needs my advice. I might not be a real estate agent, or I might not be, a mortgage broker or something like that. But I have this information that I'm curating from all these professionals around me. And I said, wouldn't it be interesting if somebody wrote a book on this and actually built like a financial plan, but called it like a divorce plan or a separation plan of how do you exit a relationship and keep yourself grounded and make sure that you're getting all of the vital information, the need to know stuff, and peeled away all the fluff, maybe the stuff that's overwhelming that you don't necessarily have to be focused on. So I started writing a book a couple of years ago, and it's taken me about 18 months. We're going to be launching probably in November. The topic of the book is going to be the essential guide to divorce in Canada. We're not stuck on that yet. It might actually be the essential guide to separation in Canada. Divorce is always kind of like a little bit of a negative connotation to it. But I find, like, just like anything in life, if you're moving on past a relationship, it's really a rebirth of yourself. You're recreating yourself, right? And sometimes people have the stigma or the feeling that it's a negative thing. And yes, it has negative parts to it. But, if you stay focused and think about getting to the other side of it as quickly as possible, then you can make it like a positive part of your journey. And that's what this book is about. It's really about imparting the knowledge and advice and tips and tricks, even call it, of what people need to know to get to the other side as quickly, efficiently as possible, and to help ensure that they have the best, outcome for themselves, right? So that's what the book is about.
It sounds really, it's really fascinating because I remember hearing you speaking about that, and there's that huge stigma thing up front. But then at first, then you go, wait a second. A lot of people seem to get divorced, and those people are probably needing, if anything, their plans have been all shattered. They do need a new plan at this point. So I really do appreciate that approach of being impartial, right? Of saying, well, what are the new goals? We're starting at ground zero again. And what are the healthy things we're doing now? What are the unhealthy things? What are the things we're going to change next? I've always really appreciated it. So I definitely will be throwing a link to the book, because hopefully when this is launching, it'll be around that time. So there will be a link down there. But anything else? How can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Well, if anyone's looking to discuss anything or want to talk to me, they can check out the website. We have the O'Farrell Financial website is one place to start. I'm also on LinkedIn, so if they see my name in the credits of the podcast and just do a Google search for me. They do a Google search for me. I'm sure I'll probably pop up. I'm very fortunate. My last name isn't used there's not very many Givoques out there. So I'm very fortunate that way. And when you tag in my first name, which happens to have only one R, which is fairly uncommon for the first name Daren. You got a unique last name and a unique first name, so I'm pretty easy to find out there on the web.
And you're a very unique person and a very valuable friend. I really appreciate you coming on the show and taking this time today, Daren. And much success with the book launch. And I think there's a lot of valuable info we've gotten from this. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mike. Listen, always a pleasure, and I think you're doing great things out there.
Oh, thanks a lot, Daren. All right, you take care.